Good evening and welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting for February 13th, 2019, and we are starting at 7:10. We apologize for being late. We just had an issue that carried a little bit longer than we expected. Moving on to item 2, confirmation of agenda. Are there any emergent items from councillors to add to the Committee of the Whole agenda? Anything from administration?
Thank you, Your Worship. There are 6 items under section 14 in camera. Every single item is related to FOIP section 24.
Thank you. And at this time, I'm looking for a motion to confirm the agenda as amended.
I think it's section 8, is it not?
Section 8?
Is in
In camera, right, so,
It was shorter than.
perfect. Thank you. Councillor Corbeil.
I move the agenda as amended.
Thank you. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? Motion is carried. Okay. Item 3, delegations. Item 3.1, we have Tracy Simpson presenting, and we have an announcement and a delegation coming from EPCOR. So welcome, Tracy.
Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship and Council. This evening we're here to celebrate our newest sponsor at the Strathmore Motor Products Sports Centre. We're very pleased to announce that EPCOR has come on as our sponsor for our 5 private shower rooms and our water bottle filling stations. They're the newest member of our naming rights program in the facility. And this evening we have Kevin Visser, I hope I said that right, the Senior Manager of Regional Operations, and Andrew Reed, who's our Strathmore Site Manager, to talk about their sponsorship. We're also happy to have one of our partners here, Rob Peary, who's a Golden Hills School trustee, to celebrate with us. So I will invite them up now. Oh, they're already standing. You're welcome.
Thanks, Tracy. Good evening, Your Worship and Council. As Tracy said, I'm Kevin Visser, Senior Manager of Regional Operations with EPCOR Water Canada. With me is Andrew Reed, Site Manager of our Strathmore Water and Wastewater operations. We're pleased to be here this evening to announce our 15-year sponsorship of the Strathmore Motor Products Sports Centre. This centre is another example of the continued investment the town is putting into the community, and we're proud to support it. At EPCOR, we also continue to invest and continue to grow. EPCOR provides safe, clean, reliable water and world-class utility operations to more than 1 million people in 85 communities across Western Canada. However, we're also expanding the depth and breadth of our services we provide and are investing in sustainability initiatives that maximize efficiencies for our operations. These include our Austera biogas facility at Clover Bar and our proposed solar farm at E.L. Smith Water Treatment Plant in Edmonton. We're looking forward to new opportunities where we can share our knowledge and expertise to meet increasing regulatory demands and deliver value to our partners. As you know, EPCOR provides wastewater and stormwater services to the town of Strathmore. We also deliver safe and reliable water to the residents of Strathmore, water they can soon use to quench their thirst after a great run or rinse off after a winning game at this new facility. On a personal note, I live in Airdrie, and I'm very excited about this new centre. I've been bringing my 2 boys to Strathmore for a variety of different sports over the last 7 years. Hockey and basketball in the winter, baseball and lacrosse in the spring, and volleyball in the fall. I know this centre is a great asset for not just Strathmore, but for the surrounding communities, as we already have games scheduled in the spring. EPCOR has been part of the Strathmore community for the past 19 years. We'll be using our sponsorship as a way to continue educating residents on the water cycle, sustainability measures, and ways to reduce risk in the system infrastructure. We're committed to giving back to the communities where we operate and supporting initiatives, such as this centre, to make our town a great place to live. Thank you for having us here this evening.
Thank you.
Good evening. On behalf of Golden Hill School Division, I'd like to thank EPCOR for their sponsorship. We as trustees are very excited about the project that we have created with our partners, the town of Strathmore and the county of Wheatland. We believe this project is a legacy which will be enjoyed by all our communities. And we thank our partners, the town of Strathmore, the county of Wheatland, and our sponsors, EPCOR, for joining and creating this legacy project. And we look forward to the grand openings of both the field house and the school later this month. Thank you very much.
Your Worship,
Councillor Sobel.
if I could just have one question, is to Mr. Visser. I appreciated your comments regarding traveling that long distance with your children to Strathmore. I'm just curious as to why you just don't move here.
I moved to Airdrie in 2006. I apologize.
Thanks, and thanks for your efforts to try to increase the population. Appreciate that. Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to say thank you to you and your organization for contributing to this center. And I have a question, if you could maybe tell me what possibly we could see for kind of efficiencies at our plant in the future with EPCOR.
At the wastewater plant?
Yeah.
There's renewable energies and participating in potential biogas facilities that, may be regionalized are things that we're always on the outlook for. There isn't such a facility in this area yet, but it's something that I know a lot of other communities are also looking for. So it's always top of mind for EPCOR to look out for those efficiencies and to try to be on the leading edge of new technologies and green initiatives as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Tracy, did you want to say anything?
No, that's everything. I'd just like to welcome the mayor and anyone else from council up so we could do a nice photo with our sponsor and our partner. So whoever wore their best dads. And we did a sign up of your sign.
Oh, perfect.
So we'll do it in the photo and you're welcome to take it and you can put it in your office.
That'd be great.
And if you want any more, just let us know.
Okay.
5 more.
5 more?
First stand next to
No. Don't talk, you'll be on.
We're good?
Thank you very much.
Playground. I will support this.
Once again, on behalf of the town of Strathmore and council, we'd like to thank EPCOR for coming along and being a partner in sponsoring the way they have. And just before you all leave, I wanted to share a personal anecdote. When I went for one of my, I don't know if you call it a walk or a waddle, but I went to the track to walk, and there was a former councillor from Canmore who he was there for a basketball tournament. I know you were saying you bring your boys for basketball. He was absolutely amazed at the facility and the school, but also amazed at the ability for the three groups to partner, and expressed how it's very difficult in their area to have that happen. So he was grilling me on all sorts of things as to how we were able to pull this off between the three groups and the developer donating the land. So congratulations to all the groups, and thank you, EPCOR, again. Desperation. Okay, that brings us to our second delegation. We have George Freeman School Playground Committee. You are our delegation tonight. And tonight, I believe we have Jill McDonald, who's the associate principal at George Freeman School. And then if you wouldn't mind introducing some of your speakers.
Absolutely. Hello, Your Worship and Council. We are very excited to be here tonight and to be sharing some of our plans for George Freeman School and our playground, because it's something that we feel is going to enhance not just the school, but also the sports center and Strathmore as a community. I brought some of my awesome students along with me tonight, and they're going to introduce themselves and tell you what grade they're in. Do you want to start?
My name is Jake, and I'm in grade 6.
I'm Michael, and I'm in grade 6.
I'm Marika, and I'm in grade 4. My name is Liam, and I'm grade in kindergarten.
Awesome. So we're just going to begin, and we're just going to kind of show you what we've designed. We've been working with BDI Play Designs, who work with Blue Imp, which is made in Alberta and has a really great track record. Lots of the town of Strathmore playgrounds are actually made by Blue Imp. Easy to replace parts, mostly made out of metal, so you don't have problems with vandalism and stuff. It's a pretty great product. When we look at these pictures, Michael, is there something on here that looks really fun and exciting to you?
I think the thing that looks most fun is the parkour thing, because everybody can use it, and it's a way to get exercise while having fun.
Can you tell me what parkour is?
Well, it's a mix between running and jumping and like sliding, I think.
Climbing, yeah. Is there like a TV show where you see it?
Yeah.
What show?
Ultimate Beastmaster.
Yeah. Any other ones?
No.
No? Have you guys seen like American Ninja Warrior? Kind of that idea. So in your picture you see the yellow arrows. On our playground it won't have the yellow arrows, but that's the parkour area. Hey Liam, what in the picture looks really fun to you?
I think the beehive.
And what's the beehive? What do you do on it?
You climb on it.
You climb on it. I hear you went and tried out a beehive one day. Yeah? Was that your favorite part of the playground you tried out? Absolutely. It was a hit with kindergarten and grade 1. Marika, there's a special design on this playground. It's kind of got a whole bunch of loops in it. Why would we design it like that?
To play grounders.
And what's grounders?
It's a tag game where there's one person on the ground who tries to take the people on the playground.
Yeah, and so if you look at the main play structure where there's the slides and stuff, that area is designed to play the game grounders, so it's got a whole bunch of loops and circuits in there, so the kids can get around and hopefully not touch the ground, so they don't become it. Jake, the bottom of our playground in this picture is all gray. So it doesn't have wood and it's not rocks. What is that?
It's like this rubbery, squishy stuff, and it's all in one piece, so you're not going home with all these little rubber pieces in your pockets.
Mom and Dad like that because it doesn't wreck the washing machine. So we're going to put the pour in place on the base, which is very expensive, but it's completely maintenance-free and great safety rating on that. The kind of last part that we want to show you is the 2 additional pieces that aren't in the main drawing. Would one of you guys maybe like to talk about the different types of swings? Sure.
The one swing that has 2 pairs is called a saucer swing, and it's fit for 5 people, so 5 people at the max can have fun on there.
Awesome, yeah. And Michael, what about that area with the picnic tables?
That's where if you have like a break or a lunch, you can, at school you can come and eat, but also citizens of Strathmore can come and eat, and yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. You can return to your seat, and Kristen Wilson is going to finish off our presentation for us with some more specific details.
Thank you, guys. So I'll just point out also in the picture with the picnic benches, that's going to be used as our outdoor classroom area. And you'll notice there's bricks laid throughout that. We have an initiative right now to be selling bricks as a fundraising project so that they can be part of the history of making the playground, so people can come along and look at their bricks over time. All right, so installation is booked and some of our components have been ordered. We chose to do summer of 2019. Big goal for us. We started this adventure in September, pretty much when the doors opened, to get that playground in. Because as you drive by, and you've probably seen that great big field, our kids have great imaginations, but they enjoy some place to play. We didn't want to do it during school hours. They've already been without a playground, so just the logistics of trying to find play spots for them. And we think it would be fantastic as the students are coming back in September. They've got that playground there, and it'll just enhance their learning experiences at George Freeman School. All right, so some of the benefits to the town of Strathmore, the residents of Wheatland County. If you can just imagine a family who's been practicing at the Strathmore Motor Products Sports Center, the rest of the family is passing the time at the playground. A day home in Edgefield or Aspen, coming over on a nice summer day, just playing out there. So it's not just for the students at the school, but for anybody who's visiting either the school for a reason or the sports center. And we want it to be inviting, welcoming to all of the members of the community. When we've designed it, we've put a lot of time into looking at different parts of it, speaking with BDI. We want it to be accessible to anybody who could visit that area. So we've looked at ideas for the little toddlers, right up to maybe grandma participating in that parkour course. We've looked at different disabilities. The pour and play is a big factor of that. Somebody with a walker could go across that, the wheelchair. So we want it to be available to all members of the community that would be joining us. An added benefit with this is the school will be taking responsibility for maintenance, or the Golden Hill School Division, so that would not be a factor to town to have to think about in the plan. The project costs. Wow, did I go on a learning experience when I joined this committee and how much a playground actually costs. We've outlined some of the structure and the breakdown of some of the things that we talked about, the students presented to you, but our grand total is sitting at $460,000. That's a lot of money. We're very, very fortunate. The government of Alberta, as part of the new build of schools, has given us $250,000. So we're halfway there. We've got a long ways to go, but we are a pretty determined group, and we're going to get there. How we're doing our fundraising. So I've already mentioned the grant. We are applying for other corporate and community grants. We are limited in some of those because we did get that new school grant. We are soliciting sponsorships and we're actively initiating that. We're doing fundraiser sales. We're going to be hosting events. We've already had our first movie night that you might have seen or participated in. We've had a paint night. We've got a walkathon planned, a long table dinner, which is going to be very exciting coming up in the near future. I promise you, our group does not have a short list of ideas. We probably have too many ideas to initiate because we are a small school, but we will get there. We've got our SOBI sales going on, so we've got the partnership with SOBI supporting us, and the Buy a Brick program. That part of the legacy. And our bricks, we've got different sizes starting at $75 to $150 up to the $500 bricks. What happens if we don't raise the money? We do have a backup plan. Stage 1 is most of that grant money, and we will start with that because we do want something in place when they come. Depending on funds as they come in and our fundraising efforts, Stage 2 will be the outdoor patio area, outdoor classroom, and then Stage 3 will be the swing set. I will mention with our swing set, we aren't doing the pour and play in there. The cost of it just makes it astronomical. It's a very expensive feature. So we're going to do the compacted mulch. With the wingspan of those swings, it just takes such a great amount. But those are our plans along the way. So we have come up with, we feel, a creative way to help with some basic sponsor benefits. And of course, that's what we're presenting to you as well tonight. Our basic sponsor benefits, your name on social media, the school websites, thank yous in the newspaper. We're going to have an opening, the grand opening in September, and we're going to have what we call the Building Everyday Heroes wall. So it's going to be like a vinyl wrap or something that's going to be on display to just thank and recognize anybody who helps us with the Building Everyday Heroes, which is part of the legacy of the George Freeman School. As we're going up, we've got different levels, starting with the climber, going up to the explorer, and as you can see on there, there's different levels and benefits that would be part of that. We are suggesting and requesting that the town consider sponsoring the Beehive. We'd like to place a name on different parts of the playground to recognize that sponsorship. So it's part of the history of the George Freeman School. So, and I went with the kindergartners and the grade 1s. The Beehive is awesome. We went around the county looking at it, and that was the #1 favored. So we thought, what a great thing to ask if the town be so generous to consider that. And that's it on our part. Any questions that we could?
Well, thank you very much for your presentation, and thank you Falcons for also being a part of that presentation. Deputy Mayor Bauer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Kristen, for your presentation, and thank you, Jill, for coming, answering our questions. So I just have a question about accessibility, because right now we have we don't have access from Edgefield, we don't have access from George Freeman Trail into that part. I'm assuming that the playground will be on the school side and not the sports center side. So how are you thinking that you'll get people from Edgefield and from the George Freeman Trail into the playground and also from the sports center? So how's that accessibility going to look like?
So there's the pathway that you guys did awesome. Thank you for putting in the pathway. So much safer for the kids now. So there's the pathway that runs along George Freeman Trail, and then there's the sidewalk that goes around down Edgeview Road, which is the road that the sports center is that goes into the parking lot. And so you just have to walk past the sports center. From Edgefield, there's a back gate. So there's the fence that runs down the south side of the field. There's actually a back gate that Kristen sneaks through every day with her kids.
Yeah, it's a manhole. It's not even a gate.
Yeah.
There's no locks or anything. You just walk through. It's at the end of our bus run.
Yeah.
And will there be accessibility from the sports center out to that side of the field?
So you would just have to walk down, you just have to walk past the school section. So it's right there. It's all one place, right?
Yeah, okay. And then the other is, it states that the design is inclusive. What specific accommodations have you provided for special needs?
So the pour-in place is one of the most meaningful because now somebody who's in a wheelchair or has a walker, we've got a couple of kids at school that have prosthetics and often come to school with a walker or a little scooter. They can access the whole play surface, not just a small portion of it. There's, if you see in the images, there's a little train. There's a ramp up onto that train, and the train is actually pretty cool for all ages. It bounces and wiggles, and you can shake it, and there's stuff to do inside of it. I know. Yeah. We've also, there's the color splotches at the bottom of the slides. Those are really great for anybody that is visually impaired. If they have just peripheral vision, it gives them an idea that that's a high traffic area, and so they know to watch in that location. You'll notice that there's plastic and metal slides. Anybody that has a hearing aid or a cochlear implant can't use a plastic slide because of the static. It will screech and it can wreck them and it's terrible. So having both for kids is really important. And then on lots of the platforms, they're at varying heights. So if grandma can make a small step but not a big step, she can get on some of them. And a few of them, we've also put a D-ring. So our kids that have some accessibility issues, maybe they're not in a wheelchair, but they do have some accessibility issues, they can pull themselves up onto that to be included. We did look at putting in a wheelchair accessible swing where you drive the wheelchair on and lock it. Those aren't CSA approved. So that's not something that you'll find anywhere in Canada right now because they're not safety approved yet.
Thank you. I just learned so much about that. Thank you.
It has been a learning curve, let me tell you.
Have you considered asking the county for sponsorship as well?
We actually have already submitted a grant application to them.
Okay, so you're giving us the beehive, but you're giving them
Something else.
Awesome.
You can fight over what you want, really.
And then will the outdoor classroom space be big enough for an actual classroom of students? It's
so
very hard to see on
It
our
is,
little,
absolutely. The current design is 4 tables that seat 8 kids at each one, so that would be a class of 24 kids.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is it Councillor Cox first?
Sure.
Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just had a question, just maybe a little naive in this sense, but you're saying that people from the community can use the park, the playground during the day, during school? Like, what if you guys come out to use it and there's other
Then
people there?
It's kind of like the sports center. I took my grade 8s onto the track the other day, and there were a couple of community members out there using the track, and we just say hello, and we're friendly, and we teach our kids how to be good citizens, and the community members are, and that's one of the coolest things about George Freeman School is we get to interact with the community, and we always have a supervisor. There's always a teacher around.
Interesting. I thought it would have been a safety issue, but
We have a lot of teacher eyes that kind of try and maintain that. I mean, the sports center is open and there's phys ed classes happening in there, so. Yeah.
fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Councillor Peterson.
I just have a question that is budget related. So council sets their budget in the fall, and so our 2019 budget is set, and you want this beehive in the summer of 2019. That's problematic.
But we'll take a rain check.
So that's what my question is. So that would be okay. So this
We could figure
is
that out.
something we
Yeah.
could figure out and look at into the future or into another section of your phases.
Yeah, or if you want to make the commitment and say the money will arrive at this date, we can figure that out, absolutely.
Thank you. And I appreciate all the effort.
That's a good point, too. Thanks, Councillor Peterson, for bringing up the budget part of it, and that's something we can discuss as a council. It's an exciting project. Are there any other questions or comments? An exciting project from your school, staff, and students and parents. I just want to say with the experience we've had with you in the past, as far as the discourse, they have the right person involved in this project because I
think
know
that's
you're
how I
gonna-
got delegated to
Yeah,
this job.
but what you were able to pull off with that project has been amazing for the town, and this playground will be for all of the town as well, so. And my experience with parkour has just been that one episode of The Office, so I'm ready, I am ready.
You can do it,
I can fall from things pretty good. So again, thanks for all your efforts and your work on this, and we look forward to your success in the fall for this and in the opening of it.
Thank you very much.
And thanks, Falcons.
Yes, thank you.
May I be given a card?
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Is it for us?
Happy Valentine's.
Oh, thank you very much. Deborah, I hope you're watching at home. Thank you, Marielka. It was very nice of you. I appreciate that. You've made me blush, too. And thanks, Falcons, for your presentation. You handled yourselves really well. You really spoke well on the project, so good job. All right, moving on to our next topic, Strathmore Municipal Library, if you wouldn't mind coming forward, and we'll go on to that one. If you... That was very nice. Yeah, did you bring...
It is. How do you follow that?
So if you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves just to the public and the people at home could hear your names, and then we'll just talk about some things. For those of you watching at home, we always talk about this. This presentation concerns the Strathmore Municipal Library, and we're going to be discussing the funding model, some of the issues that have come up lately with budgeting and funding of the library moving forward. So if you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves.
Great. First of all, thank you, Your Worship, for inviting us tonight. This is Rachel Descuyes. She's the Director of Library Services, and Jeff Ball, Chair of the Library Board.
Thank you. And I think this is, you've already presented in the fall, so we don't need you to present now, but I think there may be some questions, comments, and things brought up by council members. What I wanted to just say as a preamble is that council really supports the work of the Strathmore Library and its board and its staff. You've done an amazing job. We really believe in, I always refer back to Councillor Peterson, but in her first election campaign, she talked about how libraries are the great equalizers in a community. And we appreciate so much that the library and its location and the programs you offer can help our residents from various walks of life better themselves, help them with their children and their reading, and the various other programs that have come into the library have contributed so richly to our community. So we appreciate that. We also really like how you've done so many of those programs and tried to bring those experiences to the community, keeping in mind budgetary constraints and issues that do come up. So there have been some recent things that have happened and some concerns have come up as far as the budget that has been achieved and the funding model that has been given forward for the library. So we would like to ask some questions as we move forward and make a few comments concerning that. So if any councillors are prepared to ask any questions. Councillor Sobel?
Sure. I'll start her off. Hi, good evening. You know, the elephant in the room is the letter that went out from the board. That's going to be my focus. I'll be very honest with you. I found it fairly hurtful, especially after the year that we had in regards to our relationship with the library. I kind of understand why you did it. I was still a little taken aback that that the letter sort of paints a picture that the town just did not come to the table with enough money. My concern is that we had a 3-year agreement with the library in regards to budget increases, and as I think we just found out with the group from George Freeman, we all live within budgets, and we had budgets this year, and this is not an easy game. We admire everything that the library did, but we have so many projects that we admire and want to further along. And there's just, to be very honest with you, there's just not enough money. So I guess the only question I have, having said all that, was in regards to whether or not, and I'm hoping you can answer this, is whether or not this was a board-directed and approved letter that went out.
Yes. Yeah, it went before the entire board.
And it was
And a
voted on
majority.
and approved?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Councillor Sobel. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, having been a librarian, both a municipal librarian and a high school librarian, not a good librarian, but nevertheless, there's a reason why I became a teacher. I understand the forces that drive both libraries and municipalities. And I think that people misunderstand very often the complex governance process that libraries are under. And I am seldom compelled to read statements into record, but in this particular case, I do feel compelled to do that because I think it's worthwhile for community to know that the Library Act states that municipal library boards must prepare and submit a budget along with the estimate of the money that they require during their fiscal year to operate and manage the library. And for us, that's known as a local appropriation. And the money's provided from local taxes, so from all the citizens in the community, to deliver the public library service. It's our responsibility, council's responsibility, to approve in whole or in part that portion of the local appropriation requested by the library board. Having said that, council does not have to approve the library board's budget. That's not our job. Our job is to balance it off against all of the other interests and needs throughout the municipality. So in this particular year, after giving the library $500,000 for remodeling and significant amounts of money that have been listed in Pat's letter, in the mayor's letter, with regards to value-added service, when it came time to make the decision on that, on whether or not we would put that $500,000 that was available to us, we had to look at recreation subsidy, because right now we subsidize our recreation in the community to a significant amount with huge numbers, much greater numbers than use our library. And so that's a competing interest. The youth club was another one. The money to the Strathmore FCSS is another. A lake in desperate, desperate need of cleaning and dredging. An art society, performing arts society, and a musical arts society also in desperate need of funding. A town building that whose end of life was predicted to be in 1982, was predicted to be 2007, and a staff who work and live every day in not just this building, but in several sites around town under very, very difficult circumstances. In spite of all those competing factors, this board, at the behest of your representative on the board, decided to give that $500,000 to the library. So, and in addition to that, an increase in funding over 5 years. So I know that you came to us with a different plan, but council had, as I said, in this particular era, many, many competing interests. So it felt like the letter was a huge breach of trust, especially when you didn't come in front of us. And if there's one thing that speaks to library board bylaws, to the bylaws that govern the library board, and to the relationship that we have with the province, that we have with you, you have with us, and we have together, it seemed like a huge breach of trust. And I don't know how that can be repaired, but I think it's going to be difficult. And so I think that I'm grateful that this council chose a supportive way to move forward. They chose not to be retaliatory in any way, for which I'm very, very grateful, and chose to look at all the good that the library and the board has done in serving community, as opposed to a single act that has seemed to be ill-advised. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'm going to read an email response that I sent to people that contacted me as a result of your letter. And I just want to say that I think I can understand why you kind of came up with that letter, but I don't think it was a very good strategy. So what I wrote to people was, this council, as well as previous councils, have made funding of the library a high priority, despite there being many worthy needs and causes in our community that are all drawing from the same pool of resources. 3 years ago, the previous council made an agreement with the library board to increase year-over-year funding for the subsequent 3 years by 5% per year. The library board came to council late last year and requested that we increase per capita funding in 2019 by 27%, or $5 per capita, in order to expand programming at a rate equal to or greater than that they had been for the past few years, which was a commendable pace already. The alternatives presented at that time were to give the board a $3 per capita increase, which would see programming growth slowed but still growing, while you said that a $1 increase would allow no additional programming and likely cuts to everything from staff programming and technology. Following much deliberation and discussion, we decided to give the library an increase of $1 per capita, or about 5%, which is higher than the inflation slash cost of living adjusted amounts that other town-funded departments or service groups received. We did this in conjunction with asking the library board to re-examine the costs that they charge for various services such as room rentals, as well as ensuring that they are accessing all possible grants offered by other levels of government as well as private organizations to bring in the most amount of outside funding to our community possible. Over and above the per capita funding that the library receives, the town also directs a good portion of funding resources towards programming at the library through the FCSS program to help increase the sustainability of offering the variety and abundance of programming. The library is also assisted by the town of Strathmore's grant writer, which saves you guys countless time and effort, as well as giving you guys a higher chance of receiving grants that you guys do apply for. And this in-kind service is not accounted for in your letter. Another point to consider is that the people of the town of Strathmore through the town have contributed well over $500,000 to the library over the last 5 years, on top of the amount that was provided through the per capita requisition. This was provided to the library through paying over $450,000 of the $800,000 renovation that was done to the library a short time ago, as well as covering any funding shortfalls that were experienced by the library when they went over your own budget. Free rental of the temporary library, moving costs, and other project management services were included as part of the contribution to the library renovation and were not accounted for in the letter to the public, nor is it included the amount I've outlined above. Our actual contribution to the library, including the upgrade and the cost of in-kind services, far exceeds the amount that other communities provide their libraries on a per capita basis, and this is not reflected in the letter sent by the library board. I think it's, I believe that everyone on this council supports the library, and we all want the library to succeed. And I'll echo what Councillor Peterson said, in that you guys have done a great job. You really have. And so it's unfortunate that it's kind of gone this way, I think. And I think that there is recovery from this. But I am, I guess, disappointed that it was dealt with this way. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to respond to anything at this time? Sure. And then we'll come to Councillor Cox.
All right. Yeah. I'll just try to address them in order as best I can. So first of all, thank you, and we appreciate your support. Regarding the the agreement that was discussed twice, we scoured our papers, and we can't find this agreement that agreed to $1 per capita year over year. And even if it was made, I think that was before the renovation to the library, which I think changed the circumstances when the renovation was done. But again, we can't see any record of an agreement made. The target of the letter was never council or administration. It was to the patrons of the library and the community. Our goal was to educate the members of the community, Strathmore, Wheatland, and Rocky View counties. And you are our biggest funder, so yes, that did come up. But I'm sorry to hear that so many of you were hurt by the letter.
If I could just interject, on your educate part.
Sure.
As a former teacher, when you educate, you need to give all aspects of the situation or the situation that's going on. So to me, the letter did not provide the full picture to your patrons. It didn't present to them that you've had deficits 5 years in a row. And it didn't provide the fact that we provided all this money for expansions, moving costs. I don't believe it gave all the information it could have to the patrons. So to me, it was a bit skewed as far as education of patrons. That did bother me.
Okay. So we haven't run a deficit. What the point that came up in your last council meeting or 2 council meetings ago about over expenditures, That's just the difference between the local appropriation and, what would you say?
It's your choice to spend the money.
Right, okay, so you're taking from reserves then to
No,
to
definitely
come
not.
up with shortfall?
No, what it is it just says that like any municipal library, the local appropriation, though significant, isn't the entire picture. So it doesn't cover all the expenses.
It doesn't cover the total expenses that we reimburse the town for, but I've brought copies of our budget and the over expenditure invoices from 2017 and 2016 that show we were actually under budget on all those areas. So if you'd like copies, I'm happy to send them to you.
So the over expenditure line does not represent a library running a deficit.
Thank you.
Okay, well, that's,
It's strictly that the town's view from their own budget sees expenses that exceed what was given by the town.
Or exceed what you've budgeted,
Um,
in expectation of what the town will give you.
That may be the case. I don't know for sure, but yeah.
It is.
Okay. And the other point
okay, go on.
about the move, we're greatly appreciative of the contribution from the town. I don't know how much of it related to Canada 150. If those aligned, that's great. And if the town maybe got any funding, that I don't know for the capital project. But we are greatly appreciative. But we also would bring up that the renovation of the library was discussed for years, and we'd say overdue. We did have a planner come in, Leighton, was it? Who did his assessment, and we were significantly undersized as a library for a town or a community that we service of this size, including the county. And we recognize that the building is the town's building, and we thank them for that. The renovation to the building was largely yours, that we were happy to contribute a good amount of savings that we'd put just for this project over many years toward.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'm looking at your letter, and it says, "Our needs are not a lot. The original budget passed in November by the Library Board, which included an increase to programming and innovative ideas, would have required an additional funding of only $28,000 from the municipality." Basically, you've now just told the public that we failed you. But you just sat here through that delegation that we just had, that their needs are not a lot either, but they're asking for $30,000. Who should we give it to? We've already contributed to you, but now we have somebody else asking us for that exact same amount of money. Like, be honest, it's $28,000 versus 30.
Your Worship,
You're forcing our hands, and the letter caused us a lot of grief.
well, I'm sorry to hear that, Your Worship. We'd hate to look at it as a zero-sum game where we're competing with someone else, especially a school. And, I mean, I don't know how much went into reserves this year. I know you have a sustainability plan for long-term financial sustainability. I can't speak to the choice you're going to make about.
But those reserves, we've earmarked for infrastructure, because those are long outstanding items. That's like the piping, the roads, the sewer, the water. Those are things that we direct that to.
Specific reserves.
Yeah, they're things that this town desperately needs. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Worship. Just in response to the agreement, I think when we talk about agreement, we talk about funding agreement. So there's no question that you received 5% and you received sustainable funding over 3 years. I was a rep at the library. That conversation went on at length and has to be in the minutes. And it was definitely presented by Mr. Teedy here when the budget was presented to council, and certainly discussed among the council members who were there prior to 17, 18, what was the last election? And so definitely, while there may not have been an agreement, there was a funding agreement, which we always have every year. Am I correct in that? So you know what funding you're getting every year. And I know Jeff wasn't there at the time, but you were insured to a sustainable funding of 5% a year for a 3-year period.
As far as I know, that was never formally communicated.
Well, it was communicated because you got the money. So it was
Well, each year we
communicated through
get-
our budget.
Right, but not over a 3-year.
It was over, actually turned out to be a 4-year. Am I correct, Mr. Didi?
The increase in funding from 2015 to 2018 increased from 1669, and in 2016, the funding was 1819 per capita. In 2017, 1910. In 2018, it was $20.10, and it increases by $1 per year in the 3-year plan that we've adopted for 19, 20, and 21.
Right. So relatively the same sustainability plan that we had for the previous 3-year funding model. Thank you. So whether or not that constitutes an agreement in the mind of the library, it certainly constitutes an agreement from the perspective of this council and how we roll out budgeting and how you would know with the budgeting that you receive. And in terms of the target of the letter being the patrons, I think the letter very clearly targeted council when it asked patrons to target council. And it does ask that. It specifically does. The good news, and I want you to know very clearly, I wasn't hurt. I wasn't hurt, but I was horrified because I know what breach of trust does to organizations over the long term. It's awful and ill-advised. And in terms of the over-expenditure, I have the advantage of having been a librarian, having sat on libraries and done library budgets, and sitting on Marigold for a very long time. And I understand the value added that the over-expenditures have in terms of that. But I can also say that it's alarming to this council. It's very alarming to this council when expansions to program are done without ensuring that the funding is there. And so that's very alarming to me as a councillor in that expectation. And in terms of the renovations and the move and the size of the library, that's why this council made the decision, the very difficult decision, to put the money into the library. We recognize that you've been waiting a very long time, and it was very, very much needed. At this point, your library is bigger than Airdrie's. We have 13,500 people in this community. I think Airdrie has, 70,000? Our library is bigger than theirs. Our library is bigger than Chestermere's at this time. And I think they have, 25,000, 30,000? So I think that we're very, very well served. In terms of what's been mentioned in the whole idea of competing values, it will always be thus. And in this particular year, we've turned down Bow Valley for funding. We've turned down, I don't know how many, we've turned down more people than we've given money to. And if you think that's an easy thing to sit behind this table and do, it isn't. Not for anybody. And the other thing that I think really speaks to this, we cut lunches to the youth club.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Deputy Mayor Bauer?
I've had the pleasure, Jeff and Rachel, of being on your board for the last year and a half since I accepted this term as councillor. And I've been very impressed with not only the way, Rachel, that you direct your library and your staff, but the way that you involve our community and you involve the people within our community. Jeff, one of the first questions you asked me at one of the public meetings when I was running for a councillor was, what was my feeling on a library? And I knew that you had passion then, and I've seen that passion continue throughout your term as chair. The disappointment with me lies in that being a library representative, being a liaison between the town and the library board, I was not aware, there was not a formal motion that came through at the meeting that we were at as a board to send out a letter advocating anything more except that they would be cutting hours. And so I knew that by bringing you the information that the 5% was all that council had approved. We knew ahead of time, because of your presentation in the fall, that you would be cutting things. And so we had the very difficult task at that meeting of cutting $8,000 from the budget, which we did, and we were very effective, and a lot of communication, a lot of thought went into that. But the thought did not go into the discussion of how the letter would go out to the public and how council would be perceived in that. And so my personal opinion is that I felt a little bit targeted for making a decision that we have to stand by. We have to stand by each other and weigh all of the factors that we need to consider when making a decision. And in light of the fact that the library has been giving so many dollars, thousands, six figures of $800,000 in total, 400 of which you paid and 400 of which we have paid as a town, and the town taxpayers have paid. In light of that information, they chose to only increase it by 5%. So had I been at a meeting where I knew that this would be the end result, I think I would have been able to let the council know, and we would have been able to have a private discussion, and a discussion that wouldn't have led to this very public spot that we're in now, this very public situation. And so I'm regretful of that. And it is not reflected in the minutes that we had any type of discussion that was going to target council and our CAO. So I'd just like to have that heard. Thank you, Jeff.
Jeff or Rachel, did you have any comments? I want to make sure you guys are heard too.
Yeah, where to start? Thank you. I respect what you're saying. I'm not sure we've had a meeting since the letter went out to do that, but I assure you it did go. It was sent out, and a majority of trustees voted for the letter to go out as it was written. It's tough to respond to terms like hurt and breach of trust and things like that. My goal as a trustee and what I have to go home and look at my family and face is advocating for the library and the services it provides. That's what I signed up for, to be on the board, the library board. I respect, like you say, Councillor, the difficult choices you all, and Councillor Peterson, the difficult choices you have to make. And I'm just one advocate among many in the town and the communities surrounding, advocating for the group that I'm supporting, or representing.
Well, I just want to weigh in on that. There's four of us who've been on the library board over the years.
Yep.
And it's always been a fairly positive experience. But there seems, from what I see in the letter and just tonight, it feels like there's a different tone in how approaches are coming towards council. Instead of working together and requesting and being cooperative and I'm trying to think of the word, the word that we've used with working with collaboration. Instead of that, it feels more confrontational. It feels more like you expect things as opposed to you request things. There's a different tone than there was when I was on the library board, and I think we get a sense of that, and we definitely got our eyes opened with the letter. I was bothered by it. I do have a question, and maybe you can clear this up, we've been told that that patrons to the library have been given copies of the letter and shown how to respond. Am I to understand that some staff time, working time in the library has been diverted towards sending letters that are coming to us?
No, absolutely not.
So there's been no staff time taken to work with patrons and give out and talk about letters that should be coming to us?
We absolutely distribute the letters to our patrons, but I would not expect my staff to be helping anybody to write to
Okay.
you, certainly not.
All right, thank you. Councillor Cox.
I believe Councilor Montgomery was first.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you. So I'm just looking at your letter right now, and one of your paragraphs says, "Our needs are not a lot. The original budget passed in November by the library board, which included an increase to programming and innovative ideas, would have required an additional funding of only $28,000. Why did you come and ask for almost $75,000 if you needed $28,000? You asked for $5 per capita instead of $2 per capita, which would have covered your bases, when those weren't options you gave us. Why?
Sorry, what weren't options we gave?
You gave us, you said you asked for $5,
Yeah.
and you gave an alternative of $3, and then you told us $1 would mean cuts. So why would you come and ask for $75,000 if you needed $28,000?
28 was to meet where we are in this current budget.
Right,
To bring it up to the 3.
Right.
right.
Yep.
So, but why are you asking for $75,000?
The $5 increase that was proposed, much like when your council has proposals brought by administration, you may face 2 or 3 choices. We were doing the same. So here's how we can best serve the community, and then gave 2 other options.
But you didn't even say, hey, $2 would make us break even this year. You gave us 2 options that would increase programming and then one that would cut programming.
So the $3 increase would have gotten us to where we would see an increase in programming.
Yeah.
And that's what's reflected in the letter there.
Yeah. Well, but $28,000 would be $2
Right,
per
the
capita.
one that you was given, plus an additional 2, yeah. Would have been the 3.
Okay, so like even that's kind of a bit misleading. Like in this letter, it says would have required additional funding of only $28,000. You don't mention on top of the money that we've already got from the town, it's just an additional amount of this much. I think that's kind of misleading. The way it reads, it sounds like you guys just needed $28,000 and we didn't give you the $28,000.
Yeah, your worship, it says would have required additional funding of only $28,000, so that's the additional $2 per capita.
Right, but the way it reads, it doesn't say, it's not reading as yeah, they gave us, 14,000 extra dollars, we need 28,000 more. It's that in order to basically meet our budget, we only needed an extra 28,000. But I'll take it as it's kind of my misinterpretation then. And I just want to, I guess, to your point that you didn't think that this was a zero-sum game. There's only so many tax dollars to go around. And so this is very much a zero-sum game. Money that we give to you means we cannot give it to other organizations in the community. And as much as there is a lot of people using the library, myself included, I think it's very important. There's a lot of people that don't think the library is important at all and don't want their money going to the library. They want it going to other forms of recreation and maybe even not even recreation at all. And so it's, like I said, it's a very much a zero-sum game. And we chose to give you guys more money than we increased your funding by more than we increased other organizations in the town. And again, I don't think that's reflected in here.
Thank you. Councillor Cox?
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'm going to spin this a little bit more positive for us so we're not 100% down. I understand that there was a business that came forward and did some spectacular stuff for you. So just as this is all I need from you is for you to understand that maybe your approach was incorrect and that maybe an approach giving letters to patrons that said, do you have any ideas how we can do this? We weren't able to get all of our funding, but if you have any ideas, come forward, do this. Instead, it took a citizen to take it upon herself to help you. And I want you to see that maybe your approach was incorrect. Instead of going back and biting the hand that feeds you, you could have maybe asked everybody else in the community to give you ideas on how to fundraise and how to get there and help yourselves.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Councillor Peterson?
One last shot. Thank you, Your Worship. One of the things that I have always believed in with libraries is that they do need sustainable funding into the future. And I really believe that a much more measured approach and response might have been and might still be to come to council in a planning management stratagem to look into the future for what could make for a sustainable library program. And I think specifically about Section 648 of the Public Library Services Act, which now says that libraries are eligible for off-site levies. Mel, don't listen. And so that is an option. And it is a long game, but it is something worth looking at. Section 271, 2.1, subsection A also says, as you pointed out, that municipalities can use reserves for public libraries. It's not something that we want to do, especially in this particular environment, but it is something that we could look at into the future. One of the interesting things that have come out of this because of my involvement with Marigold is that outlying libraries from as far away as Drumheller, Hanna, Airdrie, and Crossfield have heard about this initiative. They were horrified. But one of the things that they did talk about was their own issues with public library service in their communities and their experience around finding a way back. And they did have some excellent suggestions around that. I think it is something that we need to consider if we're going to make this work into the future. Because right now, this is not healthy. It's not healthy for our community. And most of all, it's really unhealthy for our library. And so I really do think that we need to come up together with some kind of a strategy that puts away this and starts fresh and moves forward. Thank you, Your Worship.
Well, my last comments are similar to yours, is that, I would like us to move away from confrontation and discourse in the public eye with letters and keep it far more cordial and far more collaborative as we move forward. We've got, like I said before, we have 4 of our council who are former library board members, and I would like to see us all continue to be advocates to improve and move the library forward. But there are fences to mend now, and I don't get the sense that you necessarily feel there are any fences to mend, Jeff. I really feel that in your presentation tonight, you seem to have an answer for everything, and I'm not quite sure that you're on the same page as us. And our job is to do what's right for the majority of Strathmore residents as we move and make decisions and budget. And I'm hoping that there are ways that we can find a way back, as Councillor Peterson was saying, when we approach your next requests and budgets come up in discussion, so that this isn't dragged out in the public and letters are sent and people are made to feel like villains in the community that they've lived in for many years. And that's kind of the way I came away feeling, is that I was an advocate and I came away feeling like I was a bit of a villain. So hopefully we can do something as we move forward, because things have definitely changed. And if you want to just finish up any comments. Thank you for being here tonight.
I'd say quite the opposite. I'm just trying to advocate for the library. It's very tough tonight to face all of you, especially given what took place. My only goal, and hopefully the rest of the board, is to advocate for our library. We understand that you have more than just the library to think about, which, just like the legal system, is why each side has an advocate for that person. There's nothing but collaboration in mind from our entire board, myself included. No effort was ever intended to vilify anyone. I would hate that it affect the director or her library or any of the staff or even the rest of the board in our efforts to just show the community how important a library is and what it needs. So, anything else?
I guess I just want to make sure you understand that there are ways to convince our council that you are advocating for your board and your library. There are ways to do it that you possibly could have chosen other than the path you did. That's my feeling. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Okay, thank you.
At this time, we're moving on to item 4, confirmation of minutes. Confirmation of the January 16th, 2019 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes.
I would move, Your Worship, the January 16th, 2019 meeting.
Thank you for that, Councillor Peterson. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? That motion is carried. And at this time, I'm looking for a motion to go into Committee of the Whole. Councillor Corbeil.
I move we go into Committee of the Whole.
Thank you. You've all heard that motion. All in favor? And we're now in Committee of the Whole. Jennifer, I don't think we have any unfinished business tonight. Item 6, items from administration. We have 6.1, the Recreation and Culture Quarterly Report. Matt, are you speaking to this? No.
Perfect, thank you, Matt.
Go, Matt, go.
And I believe we have Mark and Lauren
Yes,
presenting tonight. Welcome.
Excuse me. Thank you, Your Worship and Council, for hearing us today. I'm pleased to present, along with Lauren, the first of the Recreation and Culture Community Quarterly Reports. Thank you, Matt. We're here to talk about the next 3 months or so and what recreation and culture will bring towards the town, and some of the highlights that are going on within our facilities, as well as some of the events we have going on. First up is the Aquatic Center. So I'm proud that we are, it's now started a junior lifeguard club. This program offers serious fun for kids that are 8 years older, and we have our first sessions running from January 10th to March 28th. This is one of the new initiatives that the pool staff are using to draw people into the pool in a variety of manners that are different from lessons and things like that. January looks like it was a very busy one. We have over 1,300 swimmers from the schools that utilize the pool as a part of their life, as a part of the school programs. They're starting another new initiative called Flash Lessons. That's going to start next week, I guess. And it's intended to have almost a condensed version of some lessons where patrons or swimmers can learn some fundamentals quickly over a condensed period of time that may help them graduate to the next lesson or next skill level. Our Sunday public swims are very popular. We have over 690 swimmers that have utilized the facility in January. One of those free events, for example, that is coming up as a part of the Family Day is Five for Life is sponsoring the family swim from from 1 to 5. And then finally, on a good note, the health inspector conducted one of his inspections, and we passed with flying colors, which is always a good sign for any pool. Yeah. Life is busy at the arena. Obviously, we had the Battle of the Badges just on Sunday. Slow your roll, player. Slow your roll. You'll get your chance. I apologize. So obviously, we have that going on there. We have the Man Van, which is to highlight prostate cancer. That's coming out this weekend. And then leads to our busy time of the year where we're hosting a variety of tournaments, both for ringette, minor hockey, provincials are coming up, and things like that. So nothing's slowing down within that facility in the short term. Civic Center, hopefully everybody has been there, and obviously with one of the town halls, the public forums, I should say, we're very excited to have the new flooring installed and new chairs. That was all done at the end of December. And really it's, the comments we've heard back from some of the users are what a change it's been way to just refresh that building that's kind of, been stuck in limbo for a while. So it's very exciting down there. We've obviously purchased some new backdrops and skirting in a variety of colors to offer some additional things to our patrons that are utilizing that. Obviously, we hosted the public forum, the Solarcraft Open House, and no different than what's going on in the pool and the arena. We got a variety of things coming up. The charter night for the Lions, some fundraising events, provincials for a banquet for minor hockey, and obviously some family day stuff that's coming up on Sunday, or Monday, I should say. Some of the exciting news at the Sports Center. Obviously, we've been open for about almost a month, and the staff today ran some numbers for us. So from January 21st to February 8th, so not including this week, we've had almost 900 patrons go through the doors there and utilize the facility. 884. So that's some very exciting news. The numbers that we pulled, obviously, off the first couple of weeks or first month is $1,300 in revenue generated through either membership sales or through admission drop-ins. 37 membership passes sold within that first week, so it goes to show that demand is there for that facility. The grand opening, obviously, is scheduled for next week, 10 till 6. And so there's a variety of things that are going to be highlighted there. Pick various sport demonstrations. Basketball with the mayor, I hear, is the highlight. Sounds good. Cake cutting and things like that, so, or parkour maybe potentially. We have 2 full-time staff there. Two full-time staff, and we've hired 3 more casual, but the need is there for more staff, and that it looks to kind of highlight one of the last comments that I'll speak to before I turn it over to Lauren is, based on increased utilization and demands by sport groups, we're actually going to extend our hours effective March 1st. We went from 8 to 8 on the Monday to Friday, and now we're going 8 to 9, just because we're seeing more and more people, more and more requests to stay later, and we anticipate that demand growing as the year progresses. Lauren?
All right. Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship and Councillors. So we have a variety of events this quarter. The first event coming up this Monday is Family Day Unplugged. Our goal with this event is to promote families unplugging from technology and connecting with each other. There will be a pancake breakfast, kids carnival, skating, fire pits, and free family swim. From February 28th to March 3rd, the town will have a booth at the Calgary Home and Garden Show at the BMO Centre. The goal of the booth is to promote the town of Strathmore as a great place to live and visit. I would like to thank all of council for volunteering at the booth. On April 13th, we will be hosting the Pitchin Community Cleanup event. Volunteers from the community donate their time to clean up garbage and make our community beautiful for spring. On April 20th, Remax Realty Horizon will be hosting an Easter egg hunt in Kinsman Park for the community. The Newsy Neighbor, the real estate reps, and the town met today to discuss furthering our partnership in regards to events such as the Get to Know Your Neighbor Festival and further supporting the Better Business Awards. The reps are also excited to volunteer at the Home and Garden Show again this year. I'd also like to discuss grants. We have applied for the following grants during this quarter. The STEP Canada Summer Jobs and Green Jobs Grant, which all fund wages of summer students within the organization. The Community Facility Enhancement Program grants for both Strathmore Minor Baseball and Strathmore Handybus. In addition, we just applied for the Volunteer Alberta Grant recently as well. If there are any questions, Your Worship and Councillors, we are happy to answer them.
Thank you for your presentation, Mark and Lauren. Councillor Sobel.
Thank you. Thanks for a great presentation. This is like a good news story. It's very welcome right now. A couple of comments. First of all, I just want to commend you folks on the Junior Lifeguard Club project. I just, every organization, the only way they survive is by attracting youth into it. It happens in golf and soccer and baseball, and this is such a great way to get our future staff online. So I think that's just really brilliant. Also, the Civic Center, I was there a couple of weeks ago, and I think it was just before I left for holidays, and it just can't believe the change in that. And I've heard such great comments as well. So amazing job on that. The hours for the Strathmore Mortar Products, it's going to 8 to 9, which is great news. Has there been any talk or input in regards to starting earlier?
Yes, through the chair. We've had some conversations about starting earlier. Most of the feedback we've had has actually been to extend the hours on the evening time. It is something that we are still gathering information about. Most of the research or most of the suggestions is maybe a 7 o'clock start, but that's still something that we're exploring both with staffing in terms of resources as well as the demand. But as I said, most of it's on the back end in the evening where the sport user groups, and I think badminton is one of the bigger ones right now, where they're asking for those extra hours.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I don't mean to push you that way. I'm just curious as to whether or not we've had some input, but you guys are doing a great job on that. And April 13th for the cleanup. Think this will be done by then? This stuff outside.
Hopefully. That's the plan, yeah.
Great stuff. I'll be there. Thank you very much, you guys.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sobel. Deputy Mayor Bauer?
Thank you, Your Worship. First of all, I just want to congratulate you. Thank you very much for your presentation, and congratulate your staff for having such an amazing health inspector's report. That is something to be really, really proud of. And I know that anytime I talk to Natasha about our other, our pool facility, she is so proud of how clean it is, and it's just to have those types of recreation facilities within our community is just something we really need to promote. So I would even love to see, something so patrons know that they are getting the number one, facility in this area. The other thing I want to commend you on is just extending your hours. There has been a lot of feedback on social media about people who commute into the city not being able to access the rec center at after 5 o'clock. So thank you for doing that, and I think you're going to get a lot of your membership's going to go right up. And then as I was reading your report, it was highlighted that you're doing flash lessons at the pool. Could you highlight what that is, please?
Excuse me. Yes, Your Worship. It's the new initiative, is like I said, is for swimmers to be offered a week worth of lessons in a condensed time, about 2 or 3 hours, where they can attempt to give them additional access to the pool, and hopefully that they could pass their specific levels. The intent is to condense these lessons, but also it's more access to the pool. What the staff have indicated is that no different than any other sport, the more opportunities they have to swim, practice their strokes and things like that, the more success they'll be. The 10,000 hours theory on that, and that's what it's intended for.
And this is such a big win for our community. The more people that go through the aquatic center, the better their education, the better their life-saving skills, the better their swimming abilities, and we're going to have less accidents, and this is going to transfer into open water in other areas, and I just thank you for being so on top of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bauer. Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a quick question actually in regards to, I know that the schools have a hockey program. How many schools are participating and how often?
I'll have to confirm the exact number of hours.
I wouldn't even need exact, I would just need an estimate.
Yeah, I believe there's 2 or 3 schools that are participating in that. They use probably 2 or 3 hours, probably 4 or 5 hours a week but during the daytimes.
Yep, absolutely. And is there a ring at one yet or not?
Not that I'm aware of.
In the talks, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Corbeil. Councillor Peterson?
I just wanted to say thanks for everything you've done, and the comments that I've heard from young parents whose children are using the facility, and this includes young people from Siksika saying, wow, for $5 we can go in and shoot hoops and play basketball, and just sort of the best opportunity in the broadest scope of the bigger community. And I also want to thank you for the extra work you've taken on behalf of our community. We're hugely appreciative. Thank you both.
Thank you very much, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Montgomery.
So my question is, how soon is the Fit Pass coming?
The all access pass?
Yeah.
Actually, we were just discussing that today. Our new recreation software, which is one of the key things for that, for a swipe and go, will be, our go live date is, I think, April 17th or 18th, so mid-April, early May. That's one of the keys, the starting factors, so we can have an access card that can just swipe and go through all our facilities. So I'll be presenting to council probably in the next month with a fee structure for that all access pass, with implementation probably to go in for May once our rec software is in place.
And what do you anticipate you'll be doing to handle the people that have, say, bought like, a year pass to one of the facilities? Like, how would you bridge that, I guess?
Yeah, we haven't had that conversation internally yet, but
Okay.
that's something that's on our radar to flag those requests. Obviously, it depends on the nature. Some people would only want to use maybe one access, maybe the pool only. But as I said, we haven't had those internal discussions yet.
Okay, well, I think that will add a lot of value, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Montgomery. Thank you for your presentation, and again, I echo Councillor Peterson's comments. Thank you for the extra duties you've taken on. And any chance that we can have some grade 6 playing against us in that basketball game, because I'd like to stuff someone. It's about the only one I could stuff.
We'll make sure it happens your way.
Excellent, thank you. Item 6.2, bylaw approval process. Cameron Thompson, welcome to tonight's presentations.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Fuel, members of council. The next item for committee's consideration and discussion is an item pertaining to how town council adopts land use bylaws that require public hearings. So before I begin with the meat of the presentation, I'd like to begin by, going over what the point of tonight's presentation is. So administration is seeking council's feedback regarding implementing a new process for how council adopts land use bylaws. And land use bylaws also would refer to statutory plans. And should council have no concerns regarding this new process, administration is proposing to begin implementing this new process at the March 6th regular council meeting. Administration will be bringing an item to council for an amendment to the land use bylaw, and it's a town-led amendment, so it might be a good chance to, quote, test the new process and get that going. So presently in Strathmore, land use bylaws, including amendments, are presented at 2 separate regular council meetings. The first is for administration to deliver a preliminary presentation to introduce the item. Then council proceeds to vote on first reading, and then they set a date for that public hearing. And then second, it returns for a second presentation from administration, and then council hosts the public hearing that they previously set, and then council votes on second and third reading. Now, while this process has been largely implemented across Alberta, certain cities like Calgary, Edmonton, and Grand Prairie up north are beginning to implement a combined process. And that combined process essentially has council hosting a public hearing the same evening that they vote on first, second, and third reading. So that is highlighted here on screen. So administration would only deliver one presentation, then council would host that public hearing, and then following the public hearing, council would proceed to vote on first, second, and third reading. This table compares the current process to the proposed process. So I'll direct you to the left side of the screen. The current process requires two separate staff presentations. It also requires 2 separate staff reports, and the report is essentially the same report, but there's 2 different recommendations. And then this also requires applicants and developers to appear to council twice. The current process also takes a minimum of 8 weeks to complete, so that's right from when we receive an application and funding for the application, right on through to council granting third reading. And then we'll shift to the proposed process on the right, The new process would only require one presentation, one staff report, and it requires an applicant to only appear in front of council once. And this process reduces the timelines by about 3 weeks. So essentially what this is getting at is that the new process is a lot more efficient because it reduces the amount of staff time and resources that are associated with these approvals. And it also requires the applicant to begin development on property sooner. A few notable considerations. Public engagement will not be affected negatively from this process, and the reason why it won't be affected negatively is because, what's going on here? Sorry, I'm just making sure I got everything here. Sorry about this, council. Okay, so the reason why it won't be affected negatively is because administration will continue to advertise these applications on the town's webpage. We will also maintain the circulation requirements of adjacent landowner mailouts should the application pertain to a specific property. And the application will also continue to be posted in the Strathmore Times for a minimum of 2 weeks consecutively. So these are all Municipal Government Act requirements that will still be maintained. The only difference being that the process will be more efficient for town staff and applicants. The second notable consideration is that this new process allows council to maintain the right to have an item returned for further consideration if they need it. If the item is, quote, a slam dunk application and council thinks that it can go right through, council can do that. But if they do require more time, that option is still on the table. And lastly, it's a unique circumstance here with this type of process. Council has to unanimously vote to have 3 readings in the same evening. So this kind of links with the second point in that if a single member on council doesn't, want to grant 3 readings in one evening, they don't have to unanimously vote, and then that item would then return to the following council meeting for third and final reading. And so again, some closing remarks here, just as the first slide stated. We're looking to seek council's feedback for tonight, and should council not have any concerns, administration is proposing to bring this process to council March 6th for a town-led land use bylaw amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Cameron. Councillor Montgomery is first, I believe, and then Corbeil and Cox.
Thank you for your presentation, Cameron. I'm just wondering, in your expert opinion, if you have realized any downsides to this? Like, it seems like it's very like a good move.
That's a good question. I think the current process allows the public to become aware of an application through the initial presentation that administration would deliver. The proposed process would only have one presentation delivered, so you could say that the downside would be that the public isn't receiving 2 presentations. That being said, administration won't be cutting back any of the mail outs and the public notifications, so yeah, it would probably just be that first presentation that isn't delivered.
Okay, all right, well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Cameron, for bringing this forward. I really appreciate any efficiencies that we can make. Like it says, it doesn't tie our hands, but it
No,
can speed up the
exactly.
process, and I think any time that we can speed up a process for the applicant is very much welcomed, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
It's just legislators finally realize how smart we are. They don't have to bring everything here twice.
Thank you, Councillor Corbeil and Councillor Peterson. Councillor Cox, that was good.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Cameron. I agree. I think efficiency is key. Love it. I just had one question. When it went from process 1 to process 2, council was setting the date for the public hearing. So now who's setting the date for the
That's a
public hearing?
great question. Yes, through the chair, that would be administration now. So
Okay.
administration would, essentially what we do is we receive an application in April and we would pick a target council date, and then once we have the target council date selected, we would work backwards, and we would, so that's typically how that works.
Okay. And then I just maybe wanted to make just a comment, just because we love our, let's, make everybody aware, let's be transparent. Should we go forward with this, which I would love to see, can we make it a big deal somewhere so that everyone knows that they won't have two opportunities to come speak? Can we say, we're changing, we're doing things more efficiently, and make sure that our public get every opportunity to know that they are only going to get to come and see us once?
Yeah, we can, through the chair, that's an excellent suggestion. We can go through our communications department and likely put a blast out on our social media and notify them through that.
Ryan, did you want to add to that?
Thank you, Your Worship, as well, and thanks, Campbell, for that. One of our intents is to host that sort of developer session in, call it April 15th, plus or minus, once we set the date. So in addition to putting it out on our social media channels and website, I think we'll take that opportunity. It will be a bit of a tub-thumping session for us to highlight some of the efficiencies, and this would be a great one to emphasize at that meeting, because it will hit our most active developers, who are the ones putting together most of the bylaws. So I think we will celebrate a win in every way we can.
Thank you. Councillor Peterson.
So would there be, and this is just in relation to what Ryan spoke about, when we meet with those developers with regards to this, and I'm wondering if we could consider a bit of a different forum in terms of having a more of a blue skying, intimate environment, rather than in that larger forum that we had in the Civic Center last year. I haven't discussed this with my fellow councillors, so I have no idea how they feel, and I don't expect an answer tonight, but just to think about into the future. But really appreciate this report. I think it's just great.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. And once again, Cameron, thank you for your presentation. I think it's going to be received quite positively from developers and people involved who will see it as a very streamlined opportunity.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
much
that's our
appreciated. And we look forward, I think this is information and it's coming to us for the March meeting? Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Which brings us to item 6.3, the Emergency Management Bylaw number 19-05. The winning coach is coming forward. He's sporting you are undefeated, I believe, as a head coach, are you not?
I'm retiring now.
Watch out.
Gingerbread houses and hockey games. 1-0.
Yeah.
And I was going to say we don't need a junior A team, we just need Battle of the Badges every week, because we filled the place and most of the adults gave $20 as they walked in the door towards that donation. So it was a great night, and thanks to council and Tracy and the town, because the ice surface was donated, so it really helped. But I digress off of the emergency management, but I'm pretty proud.
Sorry, just before you leave that topic, Trent, I'm just wondering if maybe we could get some direction for Jennifer and admin, if there's a letter of thanks we can get out to some of the people who were really involved in organizing and the boots on the ground, as you like to say that expression. But if we could, I'd love to send a letter out to thank the people who were really instrumental in getting that off the ground.
We can definitely get those names, Your Worship. I would like a big shout out to Moira over at the detachment. She did yeoman's work in and out and during the event, and she organized the trophy and a whole bunch of other things and managed the silent auction, which I believe, I want to say it was over 3,000, but I was told it was also over 4,000. So, just great work. Good evening, Council, Your Worship and Councillors. Tonight I am here to discuss with you the Emergency Management Bylaw and why I'm bringing this forward. The current bylaw that we have is Bylaw 1103. As you can imagine, is past its best before date and definitely needs some refreshing. We've had at least 2 changes to the Emergency Management Act that I'm aware of during that period of time, and we didn't keep pace. And in addition, most of the previous bylaws that are dated that far back were not in alignment with the Municipal Government Act and the authorities and the responsibilities of council. So this bylaw, although it is very short, does provide you with that alignment. It is current. It is interim but necessary, and I say it's interim but necessary because I will be coming forward in the not-too-distant future to council with regard to the Regional Emergency Management Plan. And at that point in time, this amendment, or this bylaw, will also require some amendment for it to sync up with the Regional Emergency Management Plan and the agreements. So there will be subtle amendments in addition to that will fully reflect both Bill 8 that was passed by the province late last year in the fall session, but also it will reflect how council feels they want to proceed with the Regional Emergency Management Plan and the agreement. So I didn't want to be presumptuous and change this to reflect that, assuming that you were going to fully go down that route without having to spend the time being able to have that conversation with you. My last comments before answering any questions is that we recommend that council review this bylaw and provide feedback, and that the bylaw would be brought back very short turnaround next week for council's approval and 3 readings. And council, I am prepared to answer any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. Trent, are there any questions from council? Seeing none, Councillor Peterson.
Well, I just think it's worth mentioning, for council to make sure that they understand. Trent said, I didn't realize that it had to be completed by the end of this year, but that there are training requirements for elected officials and administration that we have to complete before the end of this year. Basic Emergency Management, ICS 100, the Municipal Elected Officials course. Yeah, and we have to do that before the end of this year.
Thank you, Councillor, through the chair to Councillor, thank you for bringing that up. I have submitted our training for emergency management throughout the course of this year already. It's been established. We've got some dates. We are bringing in some key lunch and learn speakers, more specifically Greg Kriske around May 2nd, who's here to talk about ESS and recreational facilities and how municipalities would best use those. But he is a recognized professional for elected officials, so there may be some synergies that we can take advantage of. If not, we will definitely be looking at supporting all of council to meet those Bill 8 requirements throughout the course of this year, and providing those opportunities or facilitating them if that needs to be the case.
Thank you very much, Councillor Peterson, for bringing that up and the clarification. And Trent, thank you for your presentation. No questions or anything? We're good? Thank you. That brings us to item 6.4, Strathmore Library Board appointments. Jennifer, you're presenting for admin?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Administration is recommending to council that council extend the current library board appointments for the current members. Administration has received 6 applications from the library board. There is a change. Typically, the library board is appointed, in December of each year. The Act actually states that the board can, the council can appoint members to the board in 1, 2, and 3-year terms. And we really want to work with them so that we can make sure that there's some overlap in appointments, so that there's some knowledge kept on the board. So we're asking council to extend the current appointments until October 31st, 2019, and so that it also aligns with all of our other board appointments.
Are there any questions from council to admin before we come out of committee of the whole to make a possible motion? Councillor Peterson?
No, I don't. I just was ready to make a motion after
thank
we
you.
come out of committee of the whole.
Are there any other questions from councillors? And I'll look forward.
I do have one
Sure.
question relevant to that. We should have the names, correct?
Yes, Your Worship, and I was just pulling up my
I think
report
I have
here.
them, I think I have them, but.
Yes, so we have, Mr. Jeff Ball, Mr. Jim Greer, Ms. Debbie Enslin, Mr. Gary Jensen, and Mr. David Seymour.
Thank you. Councillor Cox?
Your worship.
Yes.
I'll move we come out of committee of the whole.
Okay, we have a motion to come out of committee of the whole. All in favor? So we're now in the public meeting, and I'm looking then for a possible, Councillor Peterson.
Yes, Your Worship, I would move that council extend the term for library board members Jeff Ball, Jim Greer, Debbie Enslin, Gary Jensen, and David Seymour to October 31st, 2019, and to direct legislative services to work with the board to draft a report with recommendations for council's consideration in October of 2019.
Thank you. You've heard the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion, Councillor Sobel?
Just want to clarify with Jennifer in regards to, it was 5, not 6?
Your Worship, it is 5.
Thank you.
Thank you. So no other questions or discussion? All in favor? And the motion is carried. Which brings us to 6.5 Strathmore Cemetery. And Jennifer, is this you again?
Yes, Your Worship.
Thank you.
Your Worship, I recommend that council stay because we're requesting a decision as well on this. So, Your Worship, council in 2018 passed a fees bylaw amendment for the cemetery fees. However, there was some discussion from the members of the public in regards to those fees, and that which ended up with council suspending those fees until the end of January of 2019. Administration is actually asking for another extension on a decision for cemetery fees, as we have a study that we are conducting. It's actually starting next week, which will help council actually make decisions, a more informed decision on what to charge for cemetery fees. That project includes feasibility studies that involve demands, needs analysis, perpetual care fund analysis, as well as cemetery operations, and it will also help us prepare a high-level budget for the short and long-term funding and cost of operations for the cemetery. So it's our recommendation to uphold the 2018 fees for the cemetery so that we have all that good information to help make an informed decision.
Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor Bauer.
I'm prepared to make a motion, Your Worship.
Is that some questions for clarification, Your Worship?
Okay, a question first, and then you can have the motion.
I have two questions. My first question is regarding, when you do the feasibility study, will privatization be one of the considerations that you would look at in that, in terms of cost saving? I know that Councillor Montgomery brought this up very early on in our last tenure, or at the beginning of our council tenure, and wondering if that might be a consideration.
Your Worship, it can be, yes. We can instruct our consultants to
If
look at
they
that
dismiss
option.
it out of hand and there's not a funding, a saving, then maybe not, but if it is a consideration, I would like to see that. And my second question, just for clarification, that would mean that there's no increase in the funding, or in the funds to the cemetery fees? So we set them aside, and we're going to keep them set aside?
Correct, Your
Thank
Worship.
you.
We will have the same 2018 fees.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions concerning that? Then I'm looking for the motion from Deputy Mayor Bauer.
I move that council uphold the 2018 cemetery fees until the cemetery master plan report has been completed.
Thank you for that, Deputy Mayor Bauer. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? And the motion is carried. Which brings us to item 7, urgent business. I don't believe we have anything urgent. And then I'm looking for a motion from Councillor Corbeil.
I move we go back in camera.
Thank you. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? And we're going back in camera at 8:56.